So welcome to the Asian Dialogues for Greener Production here in Siem Reap. We also give a warm welcome to our colleagues who are joining online. Without further ado, we're going to start with our opening session, and I have the pleasure to introduce you to our first speaker, Dr. Mark Beckman, the Project Director of GIZ Fabric. Please give him a warm welcome.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Yes. His Excellency Dr. Huat Phum, Under Secretary of State, Ministry of Economy and Finance, dear representatives from ministries and government institutions, dear partners from GMAC, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is a great pleasure for me to welcome you to our regional conference, Asian Dialogues for Greener Production. This conference is organized jointly by GMAC and GIZ Fabric, a program implemented by GIZ and funded by the German government. I want to thank GMAC for our many years of great cooperation and also for working together to make this event happen. Wow, it's so great to see so many of you here in the room. Can I see maybe by a show of hands for how many of you is this the first international conference since the start of the pandemic? Thank you. It's definitely for me the first time to be in front of so many people in the room in a Fabric conference. I think we had the last one 2.5 years ago in Bangladesh. So yeah, great to see you all here. Promoting a sustainable garment sector is a very important issue for German consumers and for the German government. Our project is a contribution funded by Germany to strengthen capacities of stakeholders in the producing countries. To do this, of course, we are working with a variety of partners, and I'm happy that so many of our partners are here today. For example, I would like to express my appreciation of His Excellency Dr. Huat Phum from the Ministry of Economy and Finance of Cambodia to participate in the conference today. We see ourselves as a partner of the government in implementing the Cambodian garment, footwear, travel goods sector strategy 2022 to 2027. The mission of Fabric is to connect decision makers of the Asian garment and textile industries to support the transformation towards fair production for people and the environment through knowledge transfer and cooperation. Our partner countries are Myanmar, Vietnam, Cambodia, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and China. And again, I want to thank all the partners from the different countries who traveled to Siem Reap to participate today. To promote sustainability across the textile supply chain and between countries, Fabric puts great emphasis on regional exchange and learning because we know that a lot of knowledge, expertise, and good practice exists in the region. We want to support our partners to transfer, disseminate, and then apply this knowledge. In order to promote that, Fabric has established the first inter-Asian network of producer associations, the STAR Network. Among others, the STAR Network launched the Sustainable Terms of Trade Initiative for a more balanced commercial relation between buyers and suppliers in the textile and garment industry. Now joined by 14 producing associations, many who are here today and had a very successful workshop yesterday. As part of our conference series, Asian Dialogues on Sustainable Production in the Textile and Garment Sector, more than 800 participants attended the 10 events in 6 partner countries. Immediately at the beginning of the COVID-19 crisis, the Asian Dialogues online seminar series, complemented by technical webinars for factory management, brand representatives, and worker union representatives were launched. 20 virtual sessions featured 50 speakers from industry, academia, and civil society, and around 2,200 interested people from over 50 countries worldwide dialed into the session. Topics included COVID recovery, fair purchasing practices, grievance mechanisms, and recycling, just to mention a few examples. Today, we are so happy to meet so many of our colleagues and partners in person again, but we are also including many more participants virtually. So we are really looking forward to bring both worlds together, the physical and the virtual world, during this conference. Besides regional dialogue and knowledge sharing, Fabric is supporting many joint activities with our partners in social and environmental matters. So for example, we developed smartphone apps for workers, we are supporting women's centers that provide advisory services, and we help factories to strengthen capacities on occupational health and safety. Today's conference will focus, of course, on environmental challenges of greener production. And I would like to very briefly give a few insights into what Fabric has been doing to support our partners in improving the environmental performance of the industry. At the regional level, we engage, for example, on chemical management, water and climate energy. One great success is the program for improvement of environment, which has covered water efficiency, energy efficiency, chemical management in more than 400 factories across Bangladesh, Pakistan and Vietnam during the last 2 years. Another important activity is the online training on chemical management and climate action training. The climate action training supports manufacturers to understand climate change, minimize climate risks, conduct a greenhouse gas accounting and reduce GHG in their business operations. The chemical management training content includes topics around chemical risk control, health protection and occupational health and safety at the factory. Until today, there are more than 3,500 users enrolled in both programs. And we are really happy to see that so many brands integrating these trainings into their supply chains. A partnership in the context of Cambodia I would like to mention is with the EU-funded Switch Garment project on waste management and energy trainings. This partnership aims at building capacity of garment, textile and footwear companies in Cambodia to drive tangible improvements in the areas of energy management and energy efficiency. Beyond that, Fabric is also working on waste recycling and circular economy. So on behalf of GIZ Fabric, I would like to express my sincere appreciation for all contributions and your presence today. The conversations and discussions between the different stakeholder groups from both the public and the private sector will be an important contribution to explore how we can further advocate for greener production along the textile supply chain. So I wish all of us a fruitful discussion and hopefully practical conclusions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mark Beckman. And I have the pleasure to introduce you now to our second speaker of our welcome session. And we have with us the Secretary General of the Garment Manufacturers Association of Cambodia. Please welcome Mr. Ken Lu.
Is it working now? The mic didn't like Mark. So, first of all, I want to thank GIZ Fabric for hosting this event, even though Mark has been very generous in saying that the GMAC is co-hosting, but I think 90% of the work was done by GIZ Fabric, and certainly 100% of the funding came from GIZ Fabric. So I would like everyone to thank GIZ Fabric for bringing us here, this wonderful town and this wonderful location. And first of all, I would like to say good morning to Dr. Hot Pum, Under Secretary of State at the Ministry of Economy and Finance. Of course, Mr. Beckman, who are from Project Director of GIZ Fabric, and all guests, ladies and gentlemen who are here today. The event today, as you can see, is on greener production. Earlier this year, GMAC, GIZ Fabric, and together with Switch Garment, which is an EU-funded project on energy efficiency, we signed an MOU with the aim of building capacity in the garment, textile, footwear, and travel goods factories that are operating in Cambodia. Mainly, the MOU would want to drive improvements in the areas of energy management, energy efficiency, waste management, water resource efficiency, and looking into sustainable biomass. The partnership will contribute to building and strengthening a platform. We call it the Model Green Factory Program. We're still tweaking the details of this program, but it will launch soon together with GIZ, certainly, and together with the efforts of Switch Garment. The GMAC certainly sees and certainly understands the importance going forward of focusing on sustainable production, greener production. And with that in mind, the new mandate of the GMAC Executive Committee, we have set up a new working group within the Executive Committee that deals with sustainability. So this working group, board members from the sector will look and will give direction to GMAC to focus more on areas that in sustainable production. So environmental, certainly energy efficiency. We are working with several partners to possibly look into setting up a green production base here to try to attract some of the upstream industries like in dyeing and printing that traditionally have been considered dirty industries because there's a lot of pollution. But there is a right way to do it, and we are looking into that with partners to form a green production base here in Cambodia. Our training institute, the Cambodian Garment Training Institute, has also recently launched an advanced diploma in energy and environmental sustainability. This, I think, is again testament to the fact that we recognize and we understand the importance going forward of greener production. So, in conclusion, I hope we all have a fruitful discussion, enjoy the conference, share ideas, and certainly enjoy Siem Reap. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ken Lu, on behalf of GMAC. And finally, last but not least, on behalf of the government of Cambodia, we have with us the Undersecretary of State of the Ministry of Economy and Finance. Please welcome His Excellency, Dr. Phum.
So, good morning. Yeah, I think I'm part of amongst those that participate at the first time for international conference during the pandemic time. So it is our really great pleasure. In fact, I come to Siem Reap very often, not to attend the international conference, but to do the marathon and kind of a half marathon of running. So this morning I take my time to run around about 1,000 kilometers just to refresh myself and to make sure that we want to benefit more about the good scenery, the good new infrastructures, and also the jungle with the good oxygen. So if you're really interested, and tomorrow please join with us to run with Dr. Mark Demen and some other colleague for about 10 km something in the morning. Early morning we start about 5 a.m. something. So please join us for tomorrow you want. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So I would like to say good morning to our colleague from the Fabric Cambodia, to GIZ colleagues, GMAC colleague, and also a very good morning to all representatives from different associations. And I'm very happy to see our friend, from Vietnam, from Myanmar, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, and also our colleague from China. But unfortunately, they cannot be physically with us, and they can do online. So very good morning to all of you. So today it's our great pleasure to join you in this important international conference that I would like to express my sincere appreciation to Fabric Cambodia, GIZ colleague, and GMAC. They have done a great job, to develop, the garment and textile sector in Cambodia. And you know very well that this sector is very important to our country. And this would like to continue, but in a better shape, that we generate more income for those that work directly in the sectors. And we want them to be more sustainable, more inclusive, and toward, a greener development of the country. So the relevance of the theme, the ASEAN Dialogue for Greater Production, cannot be disputed, as the industry is facing significant challenges, and we have so many challenges, including the security, economic, environmental, as well as the social challenges. Especially we have the pandemics that disturb us a lot, especially hit us so hard at the beginning of the year, especially in 2019 and early 2020. So in this period, as a representative of the Ministry of Economy and Finance of Cambodia, I would like to express my continued support for the development of the garment and textile sectors, and I look forward to participating in a frank and open discussion. I will intervene from time to time because it's my great honor to be part of you, and I get instruction from my boss. Please work hard with our colleague here and try to have more view and tell them what the government is willing to do, what the government have done so far for this sector and for the greater and the greener development of the garment and textile sectors. So friends and colleagues, so in the last 2 decades, the garment and the textile industry in Cambodia have been one of the most sources of the socio-economic development. I want to take part this opportunity to explain to you that whatever we write a new policy for the development of Cambodia, we never forget to mention about the garment and textile sector. But we want to have a better shape of this sector going forward. This is what we want to do, especially toward a greener one and a more sustainable one. So together during the hard time, we try to fight against the pandemics, and I think I would like to take the opportunity to express the sincere thanks to our government, especially the leadership of our Prime Minister, that we have take timely and right decision to fight against the COVID-19, and we can manage the situation very well. So we were among those people that participate with the government and try to draft the policy as well as some measure that we be able to live with COVID-19, to reopen the economy, the country, in November 2021, and we continue to activate our social and economic activity and so also now. So just want to say that besides fighting against the COVID-19, we also try to recover our economy. So the reason the government have launched one key strategy, I think the full name a little bit long, but let me spell it to you as well. We call it Strategic Framework and the Program for Economic Recovery in the context of living with COVID-19 in the new normal for the period 21-23. In short, it's an economic recovery plan for the period 21-23. So in this policy, why I would like to mention this one, because we emphasize on one specific approach on the 3 R principle. So the first R is on the recovery, second R is on the reform, and the third R is on the resiliency. And in the recovery, we put garment and textile sectors is one of the sectors that we need to restore it and to bring back the growth path of this sector. In the new, it is part of the growth pillar of our economy. So that's very important that we still mention about the garment and textile sector. At the same time, I think some of you maybe have been aware that the government recently launched another policy. We call it the specific name is the Cambodia Garment, Footwear, and the Travel Good Sector Development Strategy for the period 22 and 27. So this a little bit puzzling to all of you. Garment and textile sector have been in Cambodia more than 2 decades, but we don't really have a specific policy framework to develop this sector. And the government thinks that this sector still play a very important role, and this in terms of job creation, in terms of income generation for the people who working directly or indirectly in the other sector. Why don't we have a clear policy, a clear direction to make this sector better? So that's the reason why we create this new development strategy for the period 21 and 22 until 2027. So this is the first time that we have the policy framework for that sector. So this is very important that we think going forward, we want to shape this sector to be a better one and make sure that this sector will be greener and more sustainable and more durable and inclusive going forward. So this is very important that I want to highlight. So one of the reasons that I participated in this conference, besides I want to hear from all of you, I want to understand what kind of best practices that you guys have done in your respective country. So what have you done in Bangladesh, what you done in Pakistan, India, China, Vietnam, and what are some other success stories that you have? So this is very important that I want to bring all the input, the necessary best practices to do better for the garment and the textile sector of the country. So please allow me to close my remark here. I would like to express my sincere thanks and appreciation to all of you on behalf of the Ministry of Economy and Finance of Cambodia, as well as on behalf of the Royal Government of Cambodia. And I'd like to wish all of you, a good and enjoyable stay in Siem Reap. And if possible, please join us for the running if you want. And then have a successful discussion for this whole international conference. And I will participate actively with you from time to time. And again, I will share with you, what the government have done beside the government and textile strategic development for the sector. So thank you so much, colleague and friend.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pum. And I see some worried faces, imagining yourself at 5 o'clock in the morning for an easy 14-kilometer run. So, but if you want to join Dr. Pum and Dr. Mark, 5 o'clock, that's the time. It's only 14 kilometers, right? And I understand there is a famous marathon every year at the end of the year here in Siem Reap. Half marathon, it's only 22 kilometers, easy. So my name is Joost Wagner. I'm going to be your facilitator on site. I'm joined online by Dr. Stephen Frost, no stranger to many of you and senior expert on the industry and on sustainability. So he will be our moderator online. So we're going to guide you through the day, and you saw the title of the conference, actually of all these events, is Asian Dialogues. And as Dr. Pum said, we want to bring you into communication, and we have hopefully drafted a program that is conducive to actually to knowledge sharing, to sharing good practices, to make sure you have in the formal and the informal time the opportunity to share and learn from each other. So we are going to have a short keynote, and then we are going to break 2 times into breakout rooms. One is here, one is on the other side of the lunch and breakfast room. People who have been here since yesterday or had breakfast this morning know where that is. There will be many signs, we will guide you. So you have 2 choices in the morning on solar and financing, and 2 choices right after lunch on recycling and data. We will have a kind of promotional 45-second sales pitch. Many of you have already indicated where they want to go, but we will explain again by the moderators what's on the menu. We also welcome our online participants. They will be able to join both sessions virtually. And then in the afternoon, we're going to have the so-called open space or networking event. You're going to create the agenda. I will explain how we're going to do that. So if you have questions, if you would like to know more from other people, if you want to share good practices, that's your opportunity. So you're going to be able to actually call for a session, a parallel session here in this room. And this is only possible for the people who came here all the way to Siem Reap. And then in the end of the day, we're going to have a fishbowl style conversation, and that we're going to talk about how we improve our collaboration and relationships and make this greener future a reality. So that's on the menu of today. We have, I don't know how many people are online, but we have quite a number here in this room. So just very quickly, social demography, and raise your hands if you are addressed. Who is a manufacturer? Can you raise your hands? Yes, thank you. Who is a representative of any government, public or official representative? Yes, a protected minority here in the front. Who comes from a development organization, ILO, GIZ, other UN agencies? Okay, so you outnumber the government. And who is belonging rather to NGOs, civil society, trade unions, or is an independent expert? Okay, so sometimes you might even feel like wearing 2 hats or 3 hats. And of course, we can't do that, unfortunately, with our colleagues online. And who's the first time to CM Riyadh? Okay. So there are a lot of people who have been here before. They can give you tips and tricks. And I understand that some of you still want to visit Angkor Wat. Okay, and so let's start right away with our, or maybe let's say something about time management. Time management, we have a tight schedule. So I need everybody's collaboration because we have people online. They are probably more or less on time because they don't have to walk too much. But you guys have to walk sometimes from A to B because our breakouts are not at the same location. Yeah, you just don't go out next door. You have to actually go through the lobby again into the hotel. So you hear from my accent, I'm German. Germans sometimes have a reputation to be very strict with time. I want to be gentle. I bring a Asian gong, yeah? So that this indicates when something starts or stops, okay? So please, everybody, when we say 9 o'clock, then I'm German. That means 9 o'clock means 8:59. You're correct. Yeah, not 9:20, okay? So please help our moderators to, and also our online participants to have the maximum time. So without further ado, I don't want to talk more. More announcements later. And I'm going to introduce now our keynote speaker. She could not be physically with us, and it's also very early. I think it's 4:30 in the morning right now for her. We're going to have a keynote speech by Pascal Moreau, the founder of the Ohana Public Affairs. She will share a little bit about, and you know, and you have probably heard about it, the European Commission has finalized and published the EU strategy for sustainable and circular textile. And these, of course, have repercussions for many of our producers and manufacturers here in the region, and also for people who are working on sustainability here in the region. So she will highlight in the next 16 minutes aspects of that, and also hopefully will explain what the impact might be for some of you. So we're going to share that on video, so it's 16 minutes, and so please welcome only virtually and recorded Pascal Moreau.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Pascal Moreau, founder of Ohana Public Affairs. I would like to thank GMAC and Fabric for the opportunity to speak and kick off the conference today. It's a great honor. And also, I would like to extend my apologies to all of you for not being with you all today in person in Cambodia, and you have to record this speech due to the time difference. I really hope during the next 10-15 minutes that I would be able to share all my latest understanding on how the EU is driving sustainability change in our industry, in the garment and footwear industry, and how it will become a license to operate in our sector. So I really hope that after those 15 minutes, you will have some additional ideas that you can bring to the next sessions when it comes to solar panel, solar energy, financing, recycling, as some examples, and that really spark some ideas and discussion between all of you. And of course, I really hope that at the end of this little speech, you will be able to also gain some good understanding on how the EU wants to proceed, and what would be the structural changes that the industry will face when it comes to data collection, also as well as risk finance, and any more sustainability topics ahead. It will really create some ripple effects for the full industry. So not only in the EU, but along the full global value chain and supply chain. And that could also affect the countries that you are representing. Because more and more brands and retailers will ask you new requests when it comes to sustainability, and that you will have to, and you will see a number of increasing number of those requests. So I really want to explain you what you could expect and why it really is creating such a huge change. And that's why we're calling it this session at the moment, the license to operate. So I would like to first start with a bit of context. Really what is happening for the past 3 years. The European Union wants to create an industry strategy and actually a regional strategy for the European Union to become the first carbon neutral continent. So when we talk about the Green Deal, maybe you have heard about it. It's more than just a sustainability strategy. It's really how the EU industry will become resilient and change its full outlook on creating growth, and really to decouple the growth from the resource use and climate and emissions. So really, there will be a huge focus on the textile and footwear industry from the European Union. And it's because they identify our sector as the last sector to be rechanged. When you think of it, ICT industry, so your computers, your laptop already have like strong legislation. Same for other industries. The textile industry is the only one which doesn't have sustainability legislation. There is no product requirements, there is no production requirements most of the time. Or like at least strong ones. It's mainly based on voluntary activities and voluntary initiatives, all from leaders. Hence, this new wave really will create of legislation, will create a new state of a new game rules. And it's important to keep in mind, this is really going to change how you think about the implementation and the drive of sustainability. The reason why it's so important for the EU, and you can see it on the slides next to me, they are really seeing the textile as the new plastic. And plastic industry doesn't have a good reputation. So you can imagine that comparing textile to plastic is really like the big bad guys that they need to change. They really see it as a mission. Also, fast fashion is a core objective. So to change fast fashion and to actually stop fast fashion to exist. As you can see here, there are 2 quotes, fast fashion is poison and makes fast fashion become out of fashion. And those 3 quotes actually on the slide come from EU officials. So it's really important to keep that in mind. And it's the baseline of the EU textile strategy that was launched in March this year. And it will define a license to operate for any company that want to sell products in the EU. So all your brands and retailers that work with you, either you have some or they are your customer, will have to comply with these pieces of legislation, either if you're European or not European. So in terms of manufacturers, you should expect a higher level of request and a higher level also of performance that you want, that your customer would want to achieve. due to this piece of legislation to achieve the minimal legal requirements, but also to keep being referred as industry leaders. So this will have some ripple effect on yourself and on your operation. So yeah, what it's, as explained, it's really a game changer because of all that business mindset, but it also will look into different pieces of legislation that will change how you operate. So we will move into a new slides with like different bubbles, you will see, but will have some impact on how you drive traceability, how you drive transparency, what kind of data you can collect, your business models also, how you treat waste or recycling, like post-consumer but pre-consumer also waste, how your business relationship will change with your customers. So this is really important also from an investor perspective. Investors in the EU are really pushed to move from current investing processes to green investment. So we will look into that also, and textile is really a part of it, and manufacturing processes also. So yeah, see it as an opportunity, what is coming in the EU with the textile strategy as a really creating new foundation for our industry that will focus first on sustainability, but actually will change the whole way we are making business. So if we go to the next slides with all the different bubbles, here you see different colors and axes. Before getting into detail of this slide, just want to explain it. So you have urgency at the bottom and business impact vertically. Urgency is in terms of policy timeline. So the more to the right are the ones that are coming the earliest, and you will have to comply at the earliest stage. The color scheme here, so dark, just to explain you, the dark blue are the ones that will become a bit more company level. So taxonomy will be really key for all of you because you will have, even if you don't have to comply with it directly, it will have some impact on yourself, on your manufacturing processes. The reason is taxonomy is a reporting tool that brands and retailers, big brands and retailers will have to comply with. And it's to indicate to the investors how they work or how they invest in more sustainable factories. So for example, dyeing processes, any processes in the factory will be taken into account, and they will have to explain, are they investing enough? Yes or no. Are they compliant? Yes or no. So you will see most probably more requests on how you can improve where you are on the level of performance when it comes to sustainability in your manufacturing processes. And should you have higher or better performances, it's most probably that you will get more finance or investment to increase your factories, or at least if you have a plan towards it. Important to note also the second dark blue is due diligence. This will be also linked to the need for traceability and data in a way. It's the it's the piece of legislation that already exists in France and Germany and that is coming at EU level, making sure that brands and retailers actually do assess the risk along their value chain. It's already existing at OECD level with guidelines, but now actually countries are implementing those guidelines into pieces of legislation. So most probably you'll have also additional potentially audits or requests for data to prove that you're actually in control of your risk within your own supply chain at environmental level, but also social level. Taking into account also all the data discussion that you will have later on today, the light gray bubbles are the one related to transparency. So consumer transparency, product transparency, but also traceability with digital product passport. This again will be really key for your discussion on data. More and more, at least in Europe, more and more requests are to ensure that the information we provide to customer are trustworthy and reliable. And we can only do that should we have data or facts to substantiate the claims. So this is a new thing that I think brands and retailers will ask you is more information on if your material fibers manufacturers, you will have to provide more information. Same on the manufacturing processes. So important to keep that in mind. Also from a life cycle assessment perspective, there will be more and more LCA approach and then more data gathering at manufacturer level to fit into a system in EU to gather the data and to calculate the overall product impact. So again, quite important for your data discussions. When it comes to recycling, for your information, all the purple bubbles are related to, and also pink one, are related to waste, but also to product requirements. And here we see quite an urgency to drive secondary raw material market. So how to improve recycling of your material pre and post-consumer. And this will change, really. There will be some requirements, some targets at material level per products categories, and that we will see with the eco-design legislation, not only at product, but also at packaging, in case it's of importance for you all. And also microplastics will be of interest because we want to restrict or avoid any unintended release of microplastics and microfibers into the environment. With those targets, when I come back to product eco-design, with those targets, there will be huge, massive push on recycling targets for higher recycled content. So it will have some impact on recycling capacities and how you can transform this industry, and mainly from textile to textile recycling. So that's also something you could invest as a country and as an industry. That really gives some business advantages for your country. Also for waste, if you have some waste shipment regulation, there will be some new laws upcoming. You might not get the full flow of secondary raw material as you used to have. So that's something maybe to keep an eye on. Otherwise, there is a lot of discussion upcoming on chemicals, as you can see in the dark green bubbles. And that's something that will be also important when it comes to traceability and data collection. You will have to let your customer know which chemicals you're using, what kind of information or where are they used, and this will be fitting into the data, the digital product passport. Sorry for that. When it comes to solar panels that you will discuss, or solar energy, it's quite important when it comes to climate neutrality and also for product lifecycle assessment. This will provide additional benefits or lower the impact at the overall product scoring. And it will be really important also from a marketing perspective, let's say. There is also a huge push from the EU to increase renewable energy and energy efficiency along the value chain. So should you move to renewable energy, this will provide a good push for the industry to keep on working with you. And also, when it comes to taxonomy, it's also linked. You will also receive more recognition on this. There is a bit of, I understand you will talk more about environmental aspects, so that's why I took more time to explain what's coming on this part. But also at social level, there is a piece of legislation on forced labor upcoming and that we are expecting in September. This will also come to traceability and data information that it's important to keep in mind. There are some discussion on purchasing practices. At the moment, some NGO, civil society organizations are pushing for really strong purchasing practices, pieces of legislation, and that could have also some ripple effects. So far, we haven't seen a piece of legislation on this in the pipeline, but with the huge push, we might expect some in the future. Important to keep in mind as a business outside of the EU for you all, it's that the European Commission is really thinking of reducing the environmental impact and climate impact along the value chain. So also pulling more the production closer to the EU market. And that could be a risk for you because that means maybe some of your clients might move towards regions closer to the EU, such as Northern Africa and Turkey. So it's really also important to keep that in mind and keep this as an expectation for the industry in the coming years. All those pieces of legislation, which I think it's important for you to understand, are currently being discussed. So it's not implemented. You won't find a final law. You will find some projects. And we do expect to have the final pieces of legislation in 2024 and then implementation in the industry in 25, 26, meaning you have quite a short of time to actually implement it. So I really urge you to discuss with your clients, discuss with your partners, to understand how you can start discussing it internally to get the ball rolling so that you will have some implementation processes already in place and being ahead of the curve, and so gain some credibility towards the rest of the industry, but also keep your business and be seen as front leaders. That's really I would say, the big thing to keep in mind as production countries. It will obviously change the demands that your customer have put forward so far, because it will not be only the front leaders that will ask for sustainability and a lot of information. It will be also basically all your customer. So you might want to change your IT system, how you collect the data on environmental and social aspects. And also to really have a strong strategy when it comes to recycling and textile to textile recycling, secondary raw material. I think if you manage to have a strong strategy and put it in place, you will gain really some advantages, business advantages in the upcoming years. So I really hope that gives you an understanding of where the EU is aiming at and where the industry will move towards. Because if most of the time, should the EU decide on a piece of legislation or a direction, the other countries follow when it comes to legislation a few years later. So that's why we really think it's it's a new license to operate for our industry. It's not going to be only for EU, it's really going to be a huge wave changing the whole way we are working together. My apologies. I really hope this gave you a bit of understanding of where we're going and additional thoughts for the rest of the day. I would be happy to be in touch with anyone who wants to have questions. I also provided some links towards the EU textile strategy to the GIZ fabric team, so feel free to have a look at it. Those slides will be available. And I wish you a really wonderful conference and fruitful conversation. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Thank you very much, Pascal Moreau, to talk about the upcoming sustainability textile legislation in the EU. I'm sure that triggers a lot of thoughts and questions and could lead to a lot of conversations. And we're going to have also the time for that in the afternoon during our networking space, open space, where you can go deeper, but we're also going to talk about it in a minute now. I just wanted to mention that we have a small anniversary. It's the first year of the Asia Garment Hub, and for the people who know what I'm talking about, this is the one-stop shop online for the industry data, news, resources and tools related to, with a focus on sustainability. So it's asiagarmenthub.net, and the asiagarmenthub.net will be also the primary location for all the materials and recordings of this conference. And this will be probably uploaded at the end by beginning of next week. You will be able to see this presentation again. Pascal was referring to slides that were not easy to be visible, so they will be also there. So, and maybe there will be also more resources related to that. So, happy birthday, Asia Garment Hub! And if you haven't visited yet the Asia Garment Hub, please do. There's a small video in a permanent show on the site, and maybe if time permits at the end of the day we show a 3-minute video what this is all about. So now we're gonna have the final part of our opening session, and we want to explore the question, are local perspectives the missing piece to a sustainable sector? And I will call again on Dr. Mark Beckman to be the moderator for the session, and he has 3 very interesting panelists here on site, and he will be also joined by 1 panelist online. So may I request our panelists to join Mark here on stage. He will introduce everybody, and he's gonna have some questions to everybody. However, there are people online. We invite all the people online to write comments and questions into the chat. We have 1 colleague, internally we call it a chat DJ, who will actually monitor the chat for questions and comments for the online community. Maybe there is also a chance to hear 1 or 2 comments or questions from here. I can't promise. We have time until 10:40, 40 minutes, and let's see how far we get. And then that we also, because we also need to have a break, right? And you have to continue the conversation online. So over to Mark, and I have another mobile mic that I hand over.
Yes, thank you, Joost. So, textile is a new plastic. That was part of Pascal's presentation. You all heard that there are a lot of new initiatives for legislation, regulation of the sector in the EU. So a lot of changes that will come in the future when it comes to market access to the EU market. Now we want to take the opportunity to kind of like change perspectives and discuss how this looks from the viewpoint of the region. So we have stakeholders from the region, we have experts on the region here on our panel, and we would like to discuss how does this initiative look like, what experience are already here in the region, and how are you prepared for that. So let me introduce our panelists. Ladies first, to my left, this is Owen Nguyen. She is the sustainability manager of Cytex Fabric Mills in Vietnam. So Oan handles health, safety, environment, and sustainability management for the whole Cytex International Group in Vietnam, and we're going to talk much more about the company very soon. Then we have, besides Owen, we have Tom Heskett. Tom is the Eurocham's Deputy Director and Head of the Trade and Investment Services Department. Thanks for joining, Tom. And we have from part of the Bangladesh delegation here, which is quite strong, and we are very happy about that. We have Shams Mahmood. Shams is currently holds a position as Managing Director at Shasha Denims and Textiles. He's also the Chairman of the Standing Committee for Foreign Mission Cell in BGMEA and Co-Chairman of the Standing Committee for Ready-Made Garments, Knitwear and Sweater. And he also served as the President of the Dhaka Chamber of Commerce and Industry in 2020. And online, you see him there, and as Joost mentioned, many of you know him. We have Stephen Frost joining us at the panel, not as the moderator this time, but as a panelist. Stephen is one of the recognized pioneers of CSR in Asia with deep experience in consulting with business and numerous stakeholders. He currently oversees the Kaina Intel Sustainable Fashion News, email newsletter, app, and online news feed and database. So, you all heard about the EU perspective, and I want to start with Bangladesh. Shams. Of all the production countries, probably Bangladesh has seen the most scrutiny. I mean, what we have discussed now, there are a lot of new initiatives coming up, a lot of new legislation, but that's also not new, kind of like putting pressure from the outside of producing countries, as you know from Bangladesh. So I want to ask you, how do you see the impact of this? How do you see the experiences from the past? What are positive changes due to external pressures on Bangladesh, and where do you also see the challenges?
Thank you. Excellencies, dear colleagues, a very good morning to everyone. So just a quick recap on the industry situation in Bangladesh right now. So we all know that in the last 8 years in Bangladesh, we had a lot of scrutiny in factory buildings, structural integrity, then about the production process, about the greening of the industry, and all these things. In the last 5 years, what happened was that we had Accord and Alliance, these two regulators coming to Bangladesh, working with the factory buildings to make them safe. But at the same time, what happened, we started the dialogue with the brands as well. And they told us what they wanted. And a lot of the older factories started investing to upgrade their factory floor space. And from that, it started the ball rolling. And we started talking with the brands closely, and they told us about all these upcoming changes that will come in the future. And all the new factories which have been built in the last 5 years have taken these points in heart. We wanted to make the industry future-proof, basically. And a lot of investment has gone into this. For example, the top 8 green factories in the world are in Bangladesh. There are 165 green factories operating presently in Bangladesh. Over 700 are waiting to be certified by US GBC. So you can see the greening happening there. The first green textile factory in the world is located in Bangladesh. And all the other factories which are coming up in the last 2 years have also adopted this. With that, we have also adopted new technology into the factories, which reduces water consumption, chemical consumption, and then with all this thing, the present leadership in BJMA, led by our president, Mr. Farooq Hassan, and the board, they have come up with a vision. And we actually, like for us, this is a good thing, because the industry in Bangladesh is, right now, we are ready for this. All the challenges, all the changes that's upcoming. And for that, we have prepared a roadmap. And the roadmap is by 2030, there will be, across the industry, 30% reduction in greenhouse emissions. Then sustainable material mix will be 50%, water footprint will be reduced by 50%, zero discharge will be 100%. So you can see that, and even like renewable energy, 20% will be used. And with all these things, we are still taking new plans to make it future-proof. And one thing that I really want to mention is that we have the support of all the stakeholders. Like Accord and Alliance were there with the factory buildings and those things, and then we invested in technology. Now BJMA has upgraded themselves to take the future challenges. We want to address them ourselves. So they have come up with a new platform. It's called the RMG Sustainability Council. And they themselves have taken over the roles what Accord and Alliance did previously, and also how to introduce these visions into the working practice of the factories which are coming up. And also one thing, the other thing is that circularity, transparency, these things has been adopted by the industry across the board. We are working with Renewcell. We are working with reverse resources for post-consumer wastage use, and also we are doing a lot of prototype experiments in our factories as well. We have the lowest water usage when it comes to textile production in Bangladesh at the moment. So I think like we are ready for all the challenges, and with the transparent supply chain, and all the work that has been done in Bangladesh is validated by the study that was conducted by McKinsey recently. We showed that for the next 10 years, the buyers, 75% of the buyers has designated Bangladesh as the top destination for sourcing in the next 10 years. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Shams. I think this speaks to the fact that while Pascal said that, yes, it's maybe the last sector to be regulated from the EU perspective, certainly the topics are not new in the region, and a lot is, of course, already happening. And now I would like to move from Bangladesh to Vietnam. Sometimes talking about the due diligence legislation, we forgot that there are already many countries and also companies that are very active in making sustainability part of their business. And your company, Cytex, is of course a pioneering example for that. So can you tell us a little more about what Cytex has achieved and how that is part of your business approach?
Good morning, everyone. Today I would like to say about Cytex. As you know that Cytex is doing too much for its energy saving, water recycling, recently Fairtrade certified and industry leading rated. Special in the HIT FBM verification is 96 core in 2021. The best example of the sharing responsibility in due diligence is Fairtrade certified label. It is the one kind of verification before purchasing denim garment. We committed to uphold the labor standard and to provide richer benefit workers. To the audit and review processes before the audit step, so that the trade mark well pay for Cytex to become the Fairtrade certified in August 2018. Brand commitment to pay for Cytex to become the Fairtrade and premium. Our workers very happy for that. Workers are empowered to vote on how to use this fund. Therefore, there is a direct connection between grants and workers. We have received more than $1 million to the 2018 until now from J-Real, Markwell, and J-Real. And also, our worker fund has some activity such as employee children scholarship, health insurance buying support for the people during the COVID-19 pandemic, and so on. Our workers very happy with more income and special richer benefit through their effort. More and more brands willing to join this program. Our workers will have the more benefit. Thank you to everyone, and thank you, brand, to support us.
Thank you so much for sharing some of the experiences of Cytex, a company that is not only addressing the challenges due to the legislation, but really made sustainability part of the business approach. So moving to you, Tom, and maybe also looking at a broader group of companies and also sectors. Cytex, of course, is an example for a very advanced company. But there are also many factories that need support, and Eurochem is planning to set up a responsible business hub exactly to kind of like see what kind of support is needed to companies to comply to new due diligence legislation. So can you tell us a little bit about how Eurochem perceives the need of the private sector, and what are you planning to do in terms of providing assistance?
Yes, certainly, Mark, and Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for having me and Eurochem here today. So for those who are outside have come from internationally, Eurochem, the European Chamber of Commerce, represents the interests of the European private sector in Cambodia. I say European because you may notice I have a British accent. British is included in this as well. So the way we do this is through 12 sectoral committees. We seek to understand the challenges that our members are facing. We write up these challenges in policy white book recommendations and take these to the government in order to try and get policy responses. So this is the way Eurochem works. We really work hard to try and raise awareness of issues relevant to all of our members in a constructive way. And not necessarily to support production companies. In the past, our members were mostly made up of distributing companies, but increasingly, we've seen a demand from our members to become active in this space. So that includes from some of the large European brands who are sourcing from Cambodia, as it becomes more apparent that they need to have a more greener industry in order to continue sourcing from Cambodia. And so this is really why Eurochem Cambodia itself has become more active in this space. It's not the first time Eurochem has been involved in promoting sustainability. In the past, Eurochem has tried to create a platform to promote sustainable initiatives. We've had our CSR awards in the past in 2019 and 2021. We've had our Green Business Committee represented by Roger Van Mansveld at the back. It's been really great to see so many of the Eurochem members here at this event, actually. So that's actually one of our most active committees in Eurochem. We've been holding events such as our Green Building Forum. Recently, we've launched a Green Energy Financing Forum to try and tackle some of the rooftop solar initiatives. And as you mentioned, most recently, that has translated into, well, with the support of GIZ Fabric, the potential establishment of a responsible business hub in Cambodia, which in collaboration with partners at GMAC and other relevant government entities will be specifically for the purpose of raising awareness of some of these new EU and other country HRADD laws. So to just as a kind of taster of some of the activities to come, what is Eurochem going to be doing in the future? This Responsible Business Hub, we're aiming for this to be an inquiry point for companies, for factories who want to learn more about how they should comply with new regulations. We have staff members on board who are experts on this space. For example, integrated expert Masi Tropiano, who will be a speaker later on. We really want this desk to be, if you're a factory confused about how to comply, you can speak to us. We'll work with GMAC and other partners to try and answer your inquiry in the best way possible. Other exciting initiatives we have planned are a series of public-private dialogue events to raise greater awareness. So similar to the event here we have today, we'll be having other events tackling specific topics related to sustainability in the garment sector, including better use of data, digitalizing the garment sector in collaboration with the Cambodian Academy of Digital Technology, CADT, a directory of responsible business consultants, self-assessment tools, garment CSR awards we're quite excited to launch in early 2023, and much more. So I guess to conclude, the role of the Chamber in my mind is to raise awareness of the issues our members are facing. Increasingly, our members are interested in this space. We're a demand-driven organization. We're setting up these activities because there's interest from the European private sector and the European companies operating in Cambodia. And I feel, at least from the Eurocham perspective, that Eurocham is a very good speakerphone to raise those issues in a constructive way. And so that, in short, is the support that we'll provide in this particular area.
Great. Thanks very much, Tom, and thanks also for the partnership between GIZ and Eurocham to continue to raise awareness on the upcoming challenges and the new demands for market entry into the EU. So now we said we bring both worlds together. So now I'm trying to move to the virtual space and would like to include Stephen into our discussion. Stephen, we heard now about positive examples and also about activities that are going on in the countries to prepare the sector for upcoming legislation. You've been doing research in the sector for many years, and due diligence legislation is of course designed to identify risks in the supply chain, human rights and environmental risks. So based on your insights and your research, how do you see the situation in terms of risk assessments? What risks do you see as kind of like the most important one for the sector in the region, and how do they differ between countries from your perspective?
Yeah, thanks. I've got a bit of an echo. I just want to bounce off something that Pascal said in her opening speech. She said companies need to be in control of your own risks. And I think this is what we're really talking about. And from Cytex in Vietnam, you know, these are real examples of local players or stakeholders specific local risks and identifying ways of dealing with that. You know, one of the things that Cytex didn't raise in her speech was, you know, Cytex was, I think, the first textile manufacturer in the world to be certified as a B Corp. And then just last week, I think AGI Denim in Pakistan also asked. So I think these are good examples of companies taking responsibility for, and countries are taking their own responsibility for these sorts of things. So I've been working on developing risk maps across various production countries. And I think the first thing that we can talk about is risks don't just differ between countries, they differ within countries, and they differ within different tiers. So a lot of risk deals with tier one. So we're often, and maybe into tier two with wet processing, for example. So there's a lot of attention on actual final points of fabrication, so cutting and sewing factories, or in wet processing. But it's useful to also issues that comes up time and time again under health and safety would be factory fires. So if you look at factory fires, so I started charting factory fires very carefully in 2020, and when I was charting them month by month, collecting news stories from all around the world in multiple languages, picking up somewhere between 60, 70, 80 factory fires per month in the fashion supply chain. And if we look at it country by country, the country that had the most fires almost every month by far was India. And in some months, so in June 2020, India accounted for nearly 40% of all supply chain fires reported, whereas countries like Brazil, Bangladesh, Korea, Egypt only accounted for around 4 or 5 fires each, whereas India was looking at around 25 or 30 fires. And quite a lot of those fires in India are to be found in the supply chain in places like cotton ginning plants. So it doesn't matter where you go in the world. Certain risk factors come up: health and safety, fire, wages and benefits, hours and overtime, violence, etc., etc. All these things can be found across the board. But I think the real thing now in due diligence, and as Pascal mentioned, there's other things coming down the pipeline, particularly from the US, is to be thinking about the differentiation between not just between countries, but within countries and within. And what that's kind of going to require is for local stakeholders in each specific location to be able to understand how different due diligence indicators or code of conduct indicators play out in their specific environment, and those local stakeholders understand the challenges in dealing with those issues. You know, what are the challenges? Where are the opportunities to be able to deal with those in an effective way? And I think that local knowledge is going to be absolutely crucial in developing responses. Thanks, Mark.
Great. Thanks very much, Stephen. For technical reasons, we are muting the microphone here, so you didn't hear me before. I think it might be better to switch off the camera, Stephen, because the audio was sometimes not so great. So yeah, for the rest of the discussion, I think we better hear you than see you.
A lot of people say that.
Keep the camera on, but when you speak, we don't want to see you. So now we heard about the developments in the region, but what about in the different countries? What about collaboration between countries? Shams, any views on how, I mean, this is also part of the topic of our conference today, any views on how producing countries within the region can work together to address some of these challenges, and where do you see topics, areas where this kind of collaboration is really needed?
Thank you. I think this is a really interesting question. So Bangladesh, we are advancing in this industry, in this sector, but there are challenges which are coming up. For example, water used to be almost free. The cost of water was free almost, but now it's getting expensive. So that has changed the mindset of the investors, like the manufacturers, about how to go about this. Then chemical management was one thing, recycling was another thing. So I think like platforms like this, like seminars organized like today's one, are really important to exchange ideas. For example, I just want to give 2 points. One is we need to adopt, we're still learning. It's every day we learn new things. Philippines is not in this room, but in the 80s, they were the powerhouse of textiles in Asia. So what happened? So these sort of dialogues needs to be there, like engaged, like good practices. We need to learn from the mistakes that other countries made while going forward. So it's nothing like that happens to us in the long run. And another topic is that today we are talking about greening of the industry. So I just want to bring up this one point that we're talking about solar panels. Solar panels is great for RNG, but then when you talk about tier 2, do you use it for just light usage or things like that, or for the boiler system, with the hybrid system? Because that's where it makes the most impact. So we need to understand, like, if Vietnam has this in place, we want to learn from them. Pakistan, they ship the waters in tanks to the textile factories, and they're still competitive. We want to learn from them how they're managing this, what practices are doing. And overall, environmentally, I think like country to country, region to region dialogue needs to happen more often. Just, I want to finish by giving one example. Like we are all, everyone's talking about reducing our carbon footprint, energy, reducing our energy consumption. So in Brazil, it's above sea level, like 3,000 feet above sea level, average. There are denim mills there, there are textile mills there. It's not easy for them to boil the water because it's above sea level. And we are in sea level, so we do hot dyeing in the tier 2, which is we take the temperature up for the dyeing to take place. But over there, they can't do that. But there are textile mills there, so what are they doing? They're doing cold dyeing. So that just takes away the equation of using steam, the use of boilers, which involves, using a lot of energy. So we need to learn what are they doing, so we can adopt those technologies into our production process and make the greening happen industry-wide. Thank you.
Yeah, so country conditions are different, but of course there are also a lot of practical experiences, examples where countries can learn from each other. And our format here today is, of course, part of this effort to enable learning between countries. One, again, from Bangladesh to Vietnam. So Cytex, as we heard, is very advanced. But how do you see the situation of other Vietnamese companies? Are there similar efforts, or how would you think that Vietnamese companies can engage in a conversation of best practices?
I am lucky to work on the sustainability at the Cytex. Not many others have a strong commitment from the top management in sustainability. I think all want to do a good in the sustainability more. However, sustainability comes with cost, investment, and special collaboration. Within innovation, collaboration between brands and manufacturers is important. Both sides need to work to talk to identify to the hot topics such as waste, GSC, to work together. And I also think the contribution and sponsor from the GIZ fabric to the climate change training, chemical management training, and so on. That cited among many other manufacturers attended is remarkable. We need high quality program access. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I'm trying with Stephen again. So switch off the camera and up the audio maybe. So having heard about from Shams and from Oan, Stephen, from your views on the region, how realistic is it actually? So what really, from your point of view, has to happen that the different stakeholders take their responsibility and start to cooperate more to address some of the more complex challenges?
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting question, and I think the example that was given earlier about Bangladesh seeing something different happening in Brazil, and then thinking, okay, can we learn from that? And I think there's an important lesson in there that I want to sort of build on. I think there's a difference between learning from what other people are doing versus having something forced upon you. And I'd like to go back to 1993, actually, to talk about something that happened then. I don't know how many people here in the room remember the Kedah toy factory fire in Thailand. The Kedah toy factory fire in May 1993 was the toy industry's Rana Plaza. 188 mostly young women were killed and another 469 were injured. It's the worst industrial factory fire in history. But the point I want to make about that was that the Thai government, in response to that tragedy, was to think about improving health and safety systems, health and safety law, regulations within the country. And what they did with that was that they went elsewhere, looking for the best health and safety laws and practices and systems. And they found those in a variety of places. One of the places they looked at were the Scandinavian countries. And as you can imagine, Scandinavia has good health and safety systems and regulations. But the unfortunate thing about that was that the government took a system that has been developed in a completely different political, social, cultural, and economic environment. And to take the systems from Scandinavian countries and elsewhere and then expect to be able to overlay them over a very different political, social, and cultural and economic system in Thailand was not ideal. And so the Thai government spent a lot of effort in developing laws and regulations and practices that were based on something completely different that did not fit very well with Thailand. And so it didn't necessarily work as well as it could have. And I think that goes back to something that I finished up in my previous comment, was that local stakeholders need to be able to work together with their counterparts offshore, or wherever those counterparts are, brands, retailers, etc. And for all parties to understand what needs to take place in this specific environment and what local expertise there is to be able to build something that deals with those problems. Because unless there's local buy-in, unless those systems are built on local knowledge and structures and cultures and etc., then I think those things really run the risk of slowly falling to pieces over time. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you so much for sharing this important example, and I think also for highlighting the important need for learning besides just following requirements that come out from legislation. I think we have 5 minutes left, so I just wanted to see if there are any, not much time left, but if there are any open questions from first maybe online. No online questions. Are there any urgent questions that you would like to share with the panel here from the audience, or a short comment? That's also not the case. Then maybe last question to you, Tom, and please feel free to come in. The garment sector may be the last one to be legislated in the EU, but as we heard, I think today there are a lot of important experiences in the sector. So if we look, for example, at the situation of Cambodia, are there even lessons learned that we can take from the sector? And what is Eurochem looking at in terms of other sectors that also need similar kind of support to comply to upcoming requirements for market access in the EU?
Okay, yeah, Mark, thank you for the question. And this is an area I actually quite like, the what is next after garments and what support is needed. So more or less every single important Cambodian strategy, the rectangular strategy, Cambodia trade integration strategy, Cambodia agenda for sustainable development, the industrial development policy, all make as a priority diversifying supply chains into new higher value add sectors. The one that, in the interest of time, I know we only have 5 minutes, the one that we have been interested in is electronics and automotive parts. So EuroCham is actually a part of the electronics and automotive sector group within the Council for Development for Cambodia that approves qualified investment projects. And so we've started to see that the trend, it's quite a low baseline in Cambodia, but it has already started. Our latest estimates are that there are around 54,000 employees working in electronics manufacturing, white goods manufacturing. Many of them in the room will be surprised to hear that Cambodia is also the largest supplier of bicycles to the EU at the moment. So this is another light manufacturing industry that's growing quite quickly. There's around 30 qualified investment projects in the electronics sector already in Cambodia, mostly in SEZs. And what we see in Cambodia is that there really is a push from the CDC to promote these kind of investments. It's growing at 27% per year, according to the CDC. CDC very much wants to promote investment into this sector. And so to go back to the question, what is the sustainability lessons learned for these sectors? I mean, at least what we saw initially is that many of the lessons that have been learned through programs such as in the garment sector could be applied to these new emerging export sectors in Cambodia. So I think it would not be too far out of the question for some of the excellent work that's been done by Better Factories Cambodia, by the Model Green Factories Cambodia, to start thinking about small pilots in the electronics and automotive parts sector in Cambodia. At least that's what I've seen, and I'm sure maybe there'll be further lessons learned from Bangladesh and Vietnam as well.
Great. Anything you want to comment? Or?
I just want to add one thing, is that when we talk about new terms are coming up, like greening, circularity, like emission control and everything, but we have to actually, when we talk about this, we have to take into heart the what's happening in practicality, like practically what's happening. For example, for circularity, one of the problems we're facing is that we have to ship the wastage back to Europe, where it gets transformed into yarn. We have to bring it back again to Bangladesh and do the production process again. But that is in conflict with the Kyoto Protocol, the climate agreement for emissions. So how do you reconcile? So these things will be upcoming. I mean, the notion of it is great, but we need investment to make it localized. So to get rid of those processes and make it more efficient and meaningful. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. I would like to thank our panelists. Thank you so much for contributing. Stephen from Australia, and we heard from Bangladesh, from Vietnam, and from Cambodia. Thank you so much. I mean, I think from my point of view, two maybe key takeaways. First, maybe it's the last sector to be legislated in the EU, but there's actually really a lot already happening in the textile and garment sector. So the sector is not waiting for whatever requirement is formulated, but there are a lot of initiatives ongoing. And second, a regional collaboration can really contribute to address the challenges that already exist. So thank you very much. Thank you for listening, and back to you, Joost.
Germany, in contrast with, has been told 27 degrees, which is pretty hot. So, this is the cold. So, we're going to break soon, but before we do that, we have a very, very, very important 5 minutes to complete here. Because we are not coming together in this composition until we complete the second breakout. So, I want to request our 4 moderators, moderators for each breakout, join me here in the front.
Can you join me here in the front? We're going to show also a visual of each of the And please, can you just grab the mic over there? And these three gentlemen and one lady will be your lead moderators for the sessions. And I want to warn you, in case you looked at the agenda this morning, you took a picture where you have to be, it was not true. We try to make it complicated, we try to confuse you. So now we clarify everything, so please take note where you want to be before and after lunch. So first of all, can I have the first slide on the first session, which will take here at the ballroom. So if you like this topic, you're gonna stay, okay, that's the second one, okay, yeah. So maybe if you want to learn about this, you have to go to the other room behind lunch. So first moderator, we have here Roger van Mansveld. He is from the Switch Garment Project and representing also GGGI.
Yes, so welcome everybody. We're going to look into solar. Solar offers a huge opportunity for garment sector to be green. Probably when you flew into Cambodia, you probably saw a lot of blue water, blue roofs and green rice fields, but only a very few have solar. So we're going to look into the barriers and in opportunities with some very interesting representatives from Puma, from a garment sector that actually, a garment factory that implements the solar for themselves, Total Energies, UNDP and Energy Lab. So yeah, please welcome. The good thing is going to the Naga is that it's very close to where the lunch will be. So that is my promotion.
Yes, so there's a comparative advantage. So this will be in the first round from 11 to 12-ish, yeah? And so the first round. You have a competitor, and the competitor is moderated by Hasso Anwar. He is a project manager here at the GIZ Fabric team. And you want not people to go to solar. Why is that?
Thanks, Jos. I have a very easy pitch because in session 1B, we're going to talk about money. And now that I have your attention, you might be wondering, what does that mean exactly? So we will look at new approaches to financing greener production. And the venture point of our discussion will be that, of course, as you all know, green investments are very capital intensive. And while in the past, they have been largely voluntary because of some of the factors that we were discussing in the morning, in the future they will become mandatory. Did I say mandatory before? They were voluntary before. And they will become increasingly mandatory. And this brings about the question of how to finance these green investments. And because of that, in this environment, brands, manufacturers, financial service providers, and other stakeholders are currently developing innovative solutions to finance these green investments. And that's exactly what we will be looking at in this session. With this group of stakeholders, we will learn about existing projects and existing solutions, and hopefully also identify new ones and new ideas, but also challenges. So very welcome to join our session.
So that's the alternative, and this will actually, you can stay put, you come back from the coffee break, just back into the room. Just to clarify, we don't get money, we talk about money. Right?
Now you got me, yeah.
Okay, at least not now. Okay, that's in the morning. Then we go for lunch. Lunch is a buffet lunch. You have a responsible for your own well-being. Don't eat too much because you will be otherwise too tired. And you have to be back on time at 1 o'clock. I mean, it will be the challenge, as I mentioned in the morning. And then you have, again, two choices. And the next choice, please, visually. Will be moderated by Massi. Massi is also an expert with GIZ, and he's joined as an integrated expert, also the EuroCham. I think we just had his colleague on stage. So Massi, why should we not go to the other session of Jesse?
Well, thank you for the introduction. I only have 45 seconds to talk about my topic. All of you are probably understanding that the clothes that are wearing today are generating waste, and the clothes that we have in the closet have generated waste. 92 million tons a year of waste is generated by the garment industry, and that means that by the time I finished this sentence 10 seconds ago, around 10 trucks, full loads of fabric waste has gone into the landfill or somewhere. Therefore, it's a very interesting topic. All the brands are actually having as one of their priority waste into their hot topics. Some of you are nodding, and I know that that's the truth. Is the new plastic? I don't fully agree, because some of the clothes we are wearing today are actually plastic, and that means polyester. And polyester is very difficult to recycle. At the moment, there are very few experimental technologies. We're going to talk about those. We're going to talk about others initiatives and all the people that are actually trying to find a solution to it. So join us in this very room. You don't have to move, and please don't eat too much. Joost will offer coffee to everyone, right?
Yes, I will make personally coffee for everybody. Just to be clear, as I said, we try to confuse the maximum in the maximum way. This session will be here, so there will be correction. So ballroom, if you want to talk with the guests, Masi has. Okay. And last but not least, we have also a female moderator. So Jessie Lee, she's a journalist, she has a podcast, she's a consultant, and she has also a very interesting topic for you. This will be actually strategically well located, because you just have to get through a small door at the lunchroom and you're already there, right? So.
Yes, hello everyone. The reason why you might want to join my session is simple, because of the value of the environmental data. Since most of the environmental data collecting and reporting work will fall on the producers. So you might want to know how environmental data that collected by producers for brands can be beneficial for producers. And we prepared 17 questions. It's going to be a very dynamic session. And we're going to walk you through that, what kind of support and resources manufacturers can get, and also for brands and retailers. So yeah, please come to my session and we talk about environmental data values.